And now the First Union is warning young people they could be at risk of exploitation as they take on summer jobs. The union says that younger employees often don't know an awful lot about their rights, and that leaves them vulnerable. Employment expert Max Whitehead is with us on this. G'day, Max. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Tim, and thanks for bringing me on.
A lot of kids get their first jobs, don't they, at 14 and 15. Are they still as excited, willing and grateful as we used to be, or are they a bit more savvy?
I think, well, like us all, when we've had our first job, we probably lose a night's sleep. We would probably get up early in the morning a little bit wary what we're about to face. And it's always fear of the unknown. Of course it is. But, Tim, I've got to say the First Union's comment here is absolutely outrageous and unnecessary. That is one of the most disgraceful things I've heard said. Look, mums and dads usually run small businesses, and look, they really are wanting and needing staff. And most of them, I've got to say the majority of them, are good employers. They're particularly now, Tim, that's why I'm so upset, is that employers are really struggling to get staff. Just before you had me on just now, there was an advert, look, for an employer seeking more staff. They're desperate for staff. Never in the last 50 years have wages increased so much. They've gone up immensely. Now, is this terrible employers that the First Union are trying to paint? Look, it really is outrageous. And look, I do say young employees are vulnerable. But look, I get calls from parents as well saying, hey, my little son or daughter has just started work. Is this the right terms and conditions of employment? And I get checked all the time. And parents are keeping an eye out for children, particularly young ones.
Well, your read on employers' attitudes kind of goes with the flow of the general narrative at the moment. The willingness and the gratitude is on their side now. It's great, we've got someone warm and they're willing to come to work.
You've got it. The power in the relationship has moved immensely to the workers. They're desperate for workers. My daughter is just waiting for a full-time job, but she picked up a job yesterday. The employer greeted her with just glee and happiness that she was there, looked after her all day. And look, she's only young. But to give this impression, as this union, the First Union, is doing, that all employers are ratbags and terrible people, is just unnecessary. And particularly now these small businesses have gone through absolute hell in the last few months. This government have given them hell. They've doubled their sick pay. They've actually increased, wages have gone up immensely, as I've mentioned before, but also through the pandemic, they had 4 months of lockdown where they had to pay full wages. They've had an extra public holiday added to their costs. Look, it just goes on and on. The Domestic Violence Act, it just imposes another 2 weeks cost for employers. The government have given employers a really rough time. Now, this union are trying to exploit it as well. And these mums and dads businesses do not deserve this.
All right. Occasionally, though, they will fall foul of not dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So if I were offering a casual or a temporary job just for the summer maybe, do I still need to have a contract as an employer?
Oh, look, don't get me wrong, there are some ratbags out there who are employers, but there's not many left. I can tell you how they've been weeded out.
Most people want to get it right, though, don't they?
They do want to get it right, yes. And look, to answer your question, yes, you do need to have a written employment agreement. It needs to comply with the law, and there is a requirement it can do. Now, people like me, and there's a whole lot of people out there that do employment law like I do, I check agreements for people free of charge. So they could ring up someone like me. Can you just double check that I'm actually, signing off a contract which is within the sights of the law? And it's compulsory within every contract that the employer has to notify the worker, please go off and get some secondary advice before you sign this. That's what the law requires of employers.
Max, appreciate you being with us this morning and for your advice on that one. 7:23 at News Talk ZB, Max Whitehead, employment expert on those claims out of the First Union.